Today I'm going to take a look at the Flite Habu 50mm, so let's start assembling the Habu. First step on the Habu is to secure the rear stabilizer, so just put it from the rear, and you have 2 screws to secure this one to the fuse. To hold the rear piece in place, then you have this plastic piece, and you're supposed to use just tape pieces to hold this one in place. As for the main wing, there is a quick connector inside, so just put this one in, align everything, and just put it in the groove all the way down, and then you have 5 screws to secure this wing then to the fuse. And on this Habu, it's a really simple build. And thankfully, no glue is needed to do anything on this RS airplane, which is nice because then you can take the plane apart and also store it in the original box. So there are like 2 screws in the front section, 2 screws in the rear section, and then one 5th screw just to the most rear part of this wing part then. The landing gears more or less just pop in place. Have these clips, you just put them in. Pretty simple. As for the nose gear then, you have to remove this screw to be able to put this one into the fuse. There's a spring mechanism on this one, so it's a good looking nose gear. So put this one in all the way, and then on the other side just put this one on the linkage. And then down on the nose gear. And this single screw then just to hold everything in place. Lastly is the servo arm, then the linkage for the rudder, so just power it up and have this rudder surface centered, so just try it out, and if you need to adjust it just a little bit, and you have to turn this clevis, and when you're satisfied just put it in, and this plastic retainer also. This plane goes together really quick and swiftly, just like most E-flite RS airplane in BNF configuration then. Just a few screws. You have to use tape on this rear piece, which is a kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. It's kind of tight inside with the linkage and the servos and the cables, which is a little bit messy, I think. And this plane then runs on a 3S up to 2200 milliamp. I think you can also run this on 1300 milliamp. But in my experience, if you have an EDF RS airplane, you do want to maximize flight time, because EDF engines or motors, they just suck the battery dry most often. And this is a true 4-channel RS airplane, so rudder, steerable nose, wheel, elevator, and ailerons. So let's go outside and fly the Habu. Let's get this one up in the air. So this is kind of odd. I mean, the power just drops. I think I have to get this one down really quick. There's something not really working on this RS airplane. And it's also really sluggish on the elevator, so I really have to get this one down just to check why the power dropped so suddenly. Have an emergency landing, just get it down. Ouch! Okay, Okay, so second try then. Oh, same power problem again. Let's try this to see if I can get this one up in the air. So I'm pushing 100% and then I just get this kind of odd power loss just straight out of nowhere.
Time remaining 5 minutes.
And it's kind of odd, just had to make a few rounds on this field then to get a sense of this one. And I had to adjust the elevator after this first Maiden attempt, which was kind of a disaster, then just kind of crashed this one. But I didn't have enough elevator authority, and I mean, I don't know why. It's really strange that I got this power cut out right out of nowhere. I did just check everything, and I just hold the RC plane, didn't have any odd behavior. So I'm not really pushing this one more than needed right now. Just have to get a sense of how it works. Usually, I mean, Maiden are kind of uneventful, but this was interesting. First off, just this power loss, and then, I mean, seriously just lacking in elevator authority. And I was pushing all the elevator I have, and I kind of barely made it through this loop then. Doesn't seem to drop power now, at least.
Time remaining 3
So I don't know if it was a kind of a fluke or something. Let's get this one a little bit slower then, and try to do a landing that isn't a crash landing like the first one. Lower this RC plane. I'm carrying some speed. I'm not really sure where it's supposed to stall, so let's try to get this one down in one piece. Really odd behaving RC plane to this Maiden. I had high hopes for this Habu, just because I had the like 70mm larger Habu, and I thought that it was kind of underpowered, but also a really floaty RC plane, kind of easy, but really not too fun. So my hopes for this smaller than 50mm would be that it would be a really good flying RC plane with more speed and such. And certainly I do enjoy to fly this one more than the larger Habu 70mm, but I mean, the issues I had with this one. So I would divide them in two areas. The first area was that I didn't have enough elevator authority, and the surface on this elevator is just really tiny. And I set this one up by the manual, and I mean, I just had too little elevator. So what I did move to the most inner hole on the control horn then, and on the servo arm inside of this one, I moved just to the most other hole, and that's increased also rate like 130%. And then I have enough elevator authority, and it's still not touchy of any sort. I have like 30% expo. So that was the first issue, which I mean, I just could adjust the linkage. But the first flight I had with this one was really a disaster flight. It just bounced down because I had to get it down. But then I had the more serious issue, and I've seen that other people have the same issue. And because when I just pushed the throttle and tried to get this one off the grass, it just completely cut the power. And once I just got it up in the air flying, and I pushed it again, and it just cut the power for like 1-2 seconds, and then I could regain power. So I couldn't push this RC plane, which means that, I mean, in an EDF RC plane you should really like to push and go speedy, but this one I didn't really could do it. So a suggestion then I got was to reduce the timing inside the avian menu. So I think that by default it was set to 15, and then someone said, well, just lower it to 5. So I tried it, and then it worked a little bit better. Not really solved the issue because I still had these kind of powers. And I mean, the thing is, I do some flights then which are close to like 0 degrees Celsius. So it's kind of cold, but I've never had this problem. I mean, I have had like batteries that are a little bit less juicy because they are cold. But I haven't had any of these issues previously on any of my like E-flite RC airplanes that feature avian speed controllers. So in the end then, my conclusion was that, well, I just had to try some sort of, just to swap the speed controller in this one. So this one comes with an avian light 30 amp. And then I just put in a 45 amp avian speed controller. And I had a 30 amp and a 45 amp, but the 30 amp had a battery lead that was just too short, so I couldn't get it to fit. But the 45 amp had a little bit longer. So it was really fiddly just to remove these servo arms then from the servos and just put the cables inside. And thankfully you have, if you just remove the wing, you have access to the speed controller and also the motor. So it was a really good thing. So when I just did swap this one then to the 45 amp, I had no power problems at all. It just flew great, and finally I could start pushing this one around. Now, even when I push this one around, and even with the 45 amp, I think that I do get a lot of telemetry warnings. So I had the telemetry warning then set for 10.5 volt for a 3-cell. And I mean, when I get these warnings, I usually just back off the throttle. But when I have too many warnings, it's not really fun to fly an RC plane, because this one, you do really want to push this one. And although you can go quite slow, and if there's no wind at least, and fly this one, but you really want to push this RC airplane. So, I mean, the elevator one problem, the speed controller then, which is a bummer. And as I then have heard from other users having the same problems, and I don't know if they actually just solve the problems by changing the timing inside the speed controller menu, whatever they have done. But to me, the solution was just to swap the speed controller. So I might just contact Horizon Hobby and try to see if they can send me a replacement part. Now, just because I didn't have enough elevator authority and I just misjudged the speed, I did crash this one. So I was inverted and just realized I didn't have enough. So I just tried to pull out of it, and I just hit the nose section. Now, the damage was really minor. I had compression marks then on the fuse, and this plate underneath was just all cracked. So I just glued it together, put a piece of tape, and just to reinforce this one, I put carbon fiber rods in those nose section, and just cross in this direction and in the length of the fuse also. And I think that, I mean, all RC airplanes, more or less all RC airplanes with foam them, they would really have some sort of carbon fiber rods, because, and especially if you have EDF, because they usually have a long nose, which usually, if you crash this one, just breaks clean off, and then it's kind of difficult or just at least kind of ugly to get them together again. But with carbon fiber rods, the chances for the plane to survive a crash is much higher. The cost is next to nothing. So although they do put in, like E-flite then put in the carbon fiber rods in their larger RC airplanes, I think that, I mean, this one should really come with these carbon fiber rods. And it's really stiff right now also. So, I mean, a lot of problems with this RC airplane. And honestly, I mean, it does feel a little bit bad to have to deal with all these problems. And I don't know if, I mean, is it the low temperature that just doesn't work with the speed control because it uses less good components than compared to the 45 amp. The 45 amp just show no signs of this power cut, or just a kind of a you know, factory malfunction of the avian light control. I don't know what it is, but I will certainly just come back to this one and show more. But for now, I'm a little bit skeptical. And if you get this one and you have this power problem, now you know that timing probably won't just solve it. That you might just have to get a new speed controller inside this RC airplane. So for now, a little bit skeptical about this Habu SS 50mm.